So as you probably know now, the Mets had a big weekend this weekend, sweeping the Cardinals in a 4-game series. Really impressive performance. None of the games really ever seemed to be in doubt. There was a couple moments where maybe they gave up a lead or they, the Cardinals tied up the game on them, but you really felt like the Mets were in control this entire series. Now they're 15-7. They're 9-1 at home, which is awesome to see. It does seem like we have a good home field advantage now. You even see the comments after the game yesterday of Lindor saying, hey, it wasn't like this last year. It wasn't like this before. We really feel like we have a home field advantage now. And that's important. You saw Juan Soto talk about how great it is that the fans have supported him, whether he's doing good or bad. And it's important to players, and they really appreciate that. He said, you don't understand how much that means to us players. That's something I said a few days ago before this series started when Sal Licata and other people were talking about booing Juan Soto. And I made a video saying, if you do, you're not a good fan. And it seems like the fans that did go out, yeah, there was a few boos, but for the most part, they were good, knowledgeable fans who know that encouragement works better than getting down on someone. So really happy. It looked like great crowds this weekend. Place looked electric. It looked like a playoff atmosphere there, and it really showed. And the players came through because of that. I think it did have an effect on the players. And so far this year, obviously, there's been big crowds even with bad weather. So overall, really happy with how this series played out. And really, we're rolling right now. For the whole start of this season, really, it's just been Alonso in a lot of ways carrying the team. But you saw in this series the offense kind of come to life. It started happening in the last series towards the end, but in this 4-game series with the Cardinals, everybody kind of started hitting. You had early in the series, Beatty was hitting. He had a couple of doubles. Lindor hit a home run. Everybody was starting to contribute, even the bottom of the order, which has been really struggling all year. So if you look at the offensive production in this series, Lindor's getting hot. He was 7 for 18, had 2 home runs, 3 RBIs in this series. Soto's starting to warm up. And if you saw what he said after the game, in his first at-bat yesterday, he kind of felt something or he figured something out. So I think we're about to see Soto really go on a run here and get hot. And he was 5 for 13. He had 5 RBIs in this series. He had a double. He was getting hits. And that's important for a guy who's struggling. Once they start going the other way and getting base hits, that means they're breaking out. And it seems like that's what Soto's doing. Alonso, 4 for 15, had a home run, 3 RBIs. He had a double and a triple. Acuna has really been a spark plug lately. He was 3 for 7 in this series, had a couple of doubles, scored a couple runs. We talked about Beatty with his 3 for 10 early in the series. He struggled in the last game, the last couple games really, but overall, pretty good series for him. And Tyrone Taylor has really played well in this last series. He was 4 for 11. He had a double, scored 4 runs, had an RBI. Really impressive stuff from the bottom of the order. We've had some struggles now. Maybe Torrens is hitting a wall a little bit. He didn't have a great series. Unfortunately, we saw Vientos get injured. It doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term injury according to him and the team officials. It's more of a day-to-day thing, so I don't see that as being a long-term injury list kind of thing. But you never know. We'll have to see how that all works with him. But right now, if he's just out for a few games, that's fine. We have plenty to cover him, and I'm not really worried about it at this point. But yeah, it's just nice to see overall the lineup hitting as a group. And even Francisco Lindor said it yesterday. Hitting is contagious. So once a couple guys start hitting, everyone kind of starts hitting. And that looks like it's what's happening right now. Another exciting part of this series was the pitching, especially the starting pitching. They started giving you a little bit more length. You had Canning going 6 innings, which after the last start I didn't know was possible at this point in the season. He went 6 innings, only gave up 1 run, 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Really good start out of Canning. He said after the game that that's kind of the way he expects to pitch going forward. He used his fastball a little bit more. He worked the slider off the fastball, and he says this is kind of how I envision myself pitching going forward. So if we can see that out of Canning every time, there's a steal with him. They're paying him $4 million, and that's an absolute steal if you get this type of numbers out of Griffin Canning. You had Peterson. He went 5 1/3, gave up 3 runs. Not his best start. It was probably his worst start of the year, but overall not terrible. He kept them in the game, and they ended up winning, so it worked out in the long run. Not great stuff from Peterson, but I'm not worried about him long term. It was just kind of a bump in the road. Senga went 5 2/3, didn't give up a run. He cruised through 5 innings, struggled in the 6th, but overall a really good start out of him. He only had 4 strikeouts, but he only gave up 5 base runners in 5 2/3, so overall really good start out of him too. And then Clay Holmes. I don't think it was his best start, but he looked really good out there. He had 6 strikeouts. He went 6 innings for the first time. I believe it was his first time he went 6 innings. And that's what I've been waiting for with him, getting a little more length and show that he can be a starting pitcher. He'd kind of fizzled out after the 4th inning in his last few starts. So seeing him be able to go 6 and control the game, only give up 1 run, really important and really good to see. The bullpen, it wasn't dominant, I would say, in this series, but they didn't give up a lot of runs either. You look at Danny Young was a weak point in it. He only pitched 2/3 of an inning and gave up 2 runs. But he's also a guy who doesn't pitch a lot. I think it was like almost a week since he last pitched, so I can understand him having a little bit of rust. Reed Garrett, another really good series. He went 2 1/3 innings in this series, didn't give up a run. He's been as good as you could expect any reliever to be. He's just been really good for the Mets. Without Reed Garrett, that bullpen is weaker, and he's been able to pitch in a bunch of different spots. He's good with runners on base. He's good at stranding runners, and you can put him in any inning. He can come in the 6th when a guy is struggling or there's a couple guys on base, or he could be used as a setup guy. They haven't really used him as a setup guy yet, but he could very well be in that role. He has that type of stuff. So love what we've seen out of Reed Garrett so far. Buto, I haven't been sold on this year. I don't know. His numbers aren't terrible, but there's something about when he comes in the game I don't feel confident. Maybe it's because of the playoffs last year or whatever, and I just don't have any confidence that Buto's going to get it done this year. He didn't give up a run in this series, but he just didn't seem like he was pitching all that well, and he really hasn't yet this year. Minter, we saw struggle in one of the games that he pitched. He did have 2 innings in this series. One of them was easy, and one of them he walked 3 batters, and really, he just didn't have his command, but he was able to get out of it. He finished the inning and didn't give up a run, which is huge. He put some runners on base, but he stranded them there. So overall, I'm fine with that if Minter can do that every time. But when you're going up against a good team like the Phillies, that we're going to be playing next, you can't really do that. You can't put guys on base and expect to get out of the inning. So I think Minter is going to be fine. I think he's one of our best relievers, but that was a little concerning just to see him have no control out there on the mound. Stanek, he did give up a run in this series, but overall, another guy, 2 innings pitched, 1 run, 2 hits, 2 strikeouts. He was good. Kranick, an inning and 2/3 out of him, and really he's just been great. Yes, he gave up a run in the last series. He wasn't going to be perfect all year, but Kranick has been a revelation, and he's able to go multiple innings. He's also a guy that if you needed to could pitch late in the game. He has that type of stuff. So really good stuff out of the bullpen. Obviously, Brazoban gave up that home run in the 1 inning that he pitched to tie the game, but it could happen to anyone. He threw 1 bad pitch, and then he struck out the next 3 guys. So he threw 1 bad pitch. You can't blame him for that. You can't get down on him for that. He's been so good this year that that's fine. It could happen to anyone. Now, as we're starting to get a little bit later into the season, you would probably expect that the team leaders would kind of change. It's been Pete Alonso for everything so far this season on the offensive side, and so far it's stayed that way. He leads in average at 346, home runs with 6, RBIs with 24, on-base percentage 453, slugging over 1,100. He's just been great. He's had a great start. We've talked about it so much. We've said it before, without Pete Alonso, where would the Mets be? And they would be probably in last place. I don't think he scored all their runs or drove in all their runs early in the season. So they would really be struggling without Alonso. But now other people are starting to pick it up. You see Soto getting hot. You see Lindor getting hot. Other guys are going to start picking it up. And I don't expect Alonso to lead the Mets in all categories. He's not going to hit 350 this season. It's just, and maybe he will, but I highly doubt it. That's just not the type of hitter he is. But it's been a great start. and I'm expecting still to see a lot more out of him this year and probably have one of his biggest seasons. So Alonso so far has been wonderful, and he leads the team in all categories offensively. On the pitching side, it's a lot of the same guys from last time. Senga, he has 3 wins. That leads the team. He has an ERA still under 1 at a .79. I think he's third in Major League Baseball in ERA so far at this point. Holmes leads in innings at 25 2/3. He also leads in strikeouts with 34, so he has probably the best stuff on the staff. He has the best power stuff, and he's going to get the most strikeouts. And now that he's leading the team in innings, that just shows you, hey, maybe he is a starter. He went 6 innings in this game. I think he's showing that, yes, he does have the ability to go deeper into games, and that he will start to do that. Obviously, with saves, it's Diaz. It's always going to be Diaz. He has 5 so far. He's been a little shaky in a couple outings, but in the other night when he came into the game, I think the 3rd game of this series, he completely shut him down, and he was Diaz. He looked like Diaz again. He started the first at-bat. He was only throwing in the low 90s, like 93, but then by the end of the inning, he was back 97, 98. So but they asked Mendoza about that a little bit after the game, what was with the velocity dip, and he said at first when he saw it, maybe he was a little bit concerned, but then right away he picked up the velocity, and it's not an injury thing, it's just maybe a getting into the game thing or a warming up issue, but it always seems like the first batter that he comes in, he doesn't have his best stuff, and then he kind of turns it on. So not concerned about Diaz. Maybe they need to figure something out with him warming up differently or being more prepared to come into the game from pitch 1, because it doesn't seem like he always is with that first batter, and sometimes even the first couple batters. So, yeah, it's a little concerning, but listen, at the end of the day, he's still got the job done, so you can't complain too much. Now I want to kind of go into who's been hot over the last week, the last 7 games. And listen, we've talked about Alonso, and he's leading the team in everything, and he's still staying hot. He's batted .400 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs and 3 doubles over the last 7 games. But you also have Luis Angel Acuna. He's hitting .412. He's scored 4 runs. He has 3 doubles, 3 stolen bases, and he's really been a spark plug for this team. He kind of gets the offense going. He's another kind of leadoff batter later in the game. And I've never been a huge Acuna fan. I didn't think that he was ever going to really be a star. But right now, he's kind of proven me wrong. And it seems like he does have something where he really starts to perform in the majors. He is maybe bored in the minors, and he is maybe bored in spring training. And then once the competition gets to be the best, he's challenged and he comes through. So he's looked really good so far. Obviously, early in the season, he was struggling a little bit. He also wasn't getting as many at-bats. Now that it's kind of become more even between him and Beatty, he's taking advantage of it. And honestly, he's taking that job. Now we do have McNeil coming back and Alvarez coming back, so we'll see what happens with his playing time, or if they're even going to send him down. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But he really is taking advantage of this opportunity, and he's become a real spark plug. He's been really good over the last week or so. Lindor's starting to heat up. You're not seeing that same level of, April slow start that you did maybe the last couple of years. He's hitting .323 over the last 7 games. He's got 2 home runs. He's scored 5 runs. He hasn't been driving them in, but he's hitting out of the leadoff spot. He's supposed to be the setup. He's setting the table for other guys to get RBIs, and so far in the last week, he has been doing that. So I think we're seeing Lindor heat up faster than we did, and that's dangerous because last year, I think in May, he was still hitting under 200. So to see him now in getting towards late April to be, in the 260s or 270s, whatever he's hitting now, you could see a huge season out of Lindor this year, and that's what it looks like it's going to be to me. He's obviously benefiting from having Soto hitting behind him. He's seeing more pitches to hit, so he's doing a really good job so far this year, and especially over the last 7 games or so. Clay Holmes, another guy who has been hot. In his last 2 starts, he has an ERA in the 1.6s. He's gone 11 innings, struck out 14. He's been hot. You can also put Senga in there, but he only had 1 start in the last 7 days. So overall, I think Clay Holmes, in terms of their starting pitching, he's really showing you that he can be a starting pitcher, and he has been really good over the last 7 games or so. And Soto, if you look at his average over the last 7 games, he's not been, he doesn't have Soto numbers, right? But he has 8 RBIs, and now he's been getting hits, and in this last series, he's really starting to heat up. So I'm expecting a nice run here from Soto, and he's really starting to heat up, and he's looking more comfortable. You could see after the game, even after the sweep, he had a big smile on his face when he was talking to reporters, and he just seemed happy. Listen, it was this whole thing of the whole narrative that he's unhappy with the Mets. I think he was just unhappy that he wasn't playing well, and then he's playing in bitter cold. He just didn't look happy in general because he's the type of guy who wants to hit and wants to be involved, and if he's not hitting, he's not going to be happy. You know, we have another guy like that in Jeff McNeil. When Jeff McNeil's not hitting, he's not happy. So Soto might be a guy who's like that, and it's something that I think is just kind of part of his personality. So he looked happy last night. I think he knows he figured something out, and he's going to go on a run here. He even said it after the game, and they said, "What did you figure out?" And he said, "I'm not going to tell you. That's a secret." So something happened. It was a pitch that he saw, or when he hit that double, it was just something he figured out. So I'm expecting a nice big run here out of Soto. All right, now I want to talk about this narrative that's going on right now, because the Mets are going to be facing their toughest opponent of the year so far in the Phillies. The Phillies, we know, we played them in the playoffs last year. They're a good team. And a lot of people had them as maybe the second best team in baseball behind the Dodgers before the season started. So this is a good test of where the Mets are as a team. They've played a lot of bad teams so far. You know, you look at their schedule so far, and listen, you only play who's on your schedule. You can't say, oh, they haven't played anyone yet. Well, they've beaten who was in front of them. And there's this whole narrative, especially by Yankee fans and you know, people who are just trying to get some controversy on the radio or whatever. They haven't played anyone yet. And while that is true in some ways, you know, they played 6 games against the Marlins. They played the Twins. They played the Astros, who aren't off to a great start. They've played the A's. They also did sweep the Toronto Blue Jays, who are currently 12-10. And they just swept the Cardinals, who came in at 9-9 and were one of the top offenses before they came to play the Mets. I think they were 5th in OPS coming into the series. So it's not like they're playing horrible teams. Yes, some. The Twins are probably a really bad team, and they shouldn't have lost 2 out of 3. That was a really bad series loss. But you play who's in front of you. You look at the Marlins, they're a spunky team. They just beat the Phillies in extra innings yesterday. They're not a terrible team. They're not a good team, and they're not even a 500 team. But they're a scrappy team that's always going to fight and always going to take the extra base and try to steal a base. They're just not very talented, but they're still going to try to win. They're not giving up. So you just have to play whoever's in front of you. So this whole nonsense of they haven't played anyone, we'll see what happens when they play real competition. We're about to see what happens when they play real competition. And I'm not scared. They're not scared. The Mets are just as good, if not better, than the Phillies. So I have no issue. Listen, if you want to say that, feel free. You can say whatever you want. I'm not telling you what you can and cannot say. But you sound ridiculous. They're 15-7. It doesn't matter who you've played. If you're 15-7, you're obviously a pretty good team. Especially being 15-7 when Soto hasn't hit yet. Your whole offense basically has been Pete Alonso so far this year. Imagine what happens when they actually get healthy and McNeil and Alvarez come back, and now Soto and Lindor are really hitting. Maybe Nimmo starts to hit. I mean, what are we talking about here? They're going to be just fine. So that whole narrative is just nonsense, and we're going to really find out here. And now we're going to get into the Phillies series. The Phillies come in so far. They are 13-9 in second place, 2 games behind the Mets in the NL East. They're 9-5 at home, 4-4 on the road. They come in with a 736 OPS, and that's good for 5th in baseball, and they've struggled pitching-wise. They have a 4.29 ERA. I wouldn't say that's struggling. If you look later in the season, a 4.29 ERA probably isn't going to be that low on the list. But overall, they have good pitchers. They just haven't pitched well so far. And we know their offense is good. You look up and down the lineup, you have Schwarber and Turner and Bryce Harper and Castellanos. They have really good hitters. And they're going to hit home runs. They're going to be that type of team. But I think they're very similar to the Mets in the way that they're very top-heavy, right? You look at their top 4 in their lineup, and it's very good. Or their top 5 even. And then once you get past that, that's where the lineup starts to struggle. You look at Alec Boehm, and Stott has played well lately, but he's not a great hitter. So you look down towards the bottom of that order, you don't see a lot of success. You don't see a lot of great players, just like with the Mets. Now, the Mets are still going to get healthy and are probably going to get better in the bottom of the order, and I don't see the Phillies having that same type of offense. Very good up front, a little bit weak on the bottom. If you look at their leaders so far on offense, Castellanos is leading them with 304. I know there's like a guy or two that have a higher batting average, but this is who actually starts and has playing time and is eligible for postseason awards kind of thing. So Castellanos, 304. Schwarber has 7 home runs and 16 RBIs, leads the team in both. Also on base percentage, 424, and his OPS is right around 1,000. So Schwarber's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, as well as Harper. Harper's been playing really well also. And like I said, Stott's been pretty good lately too. Castellanos hasn't hit for a ton of power, but he has been getting hits. He's batting 300. So overall, their offense has performed very well so far this year. On the pitching side, we know that the Phillies have good pitching. They just haven't really performed well as of yet. Right now in the wins, you have 5 pitchers tied for 2 wins, and that's the team lead. ERA, Jesus Luzardo, 2.08 ERA. That was one of their big acquisitions. Wheeler leads in innings pitched and strikeouts, 31 and 41. And then their closer is Alvarado, and he has 5 saves. So their pitching staff has struggled, but you know the names there. You see Wheeler, Luzardo, Nola. They have really good pitching. They just haven't really performed all that well yet. Wheeler's been good, but he hasn't been the dominant Zach Wheeler that we're used to seeing. So yes, he's been good. He's Zach Wheeler. He didn't turn into a bad pitcher overnight, but I think his ERA is in the mid-3s, maybe closer to 4. So not dominant, but good, perfectly fine. And he's going to try to beat up on the Mets. He always does. He always pitches well against the Mets. So you don't have to worry about, if you're a Phillies fan, worry about Wheeler against the Mets. He always hits them well. Now, if we look at kind of who's hot in the Phillies lineup right now, Bryson Stott, like I said, he's hitting 381 over his last 7 games. He's got 4 RBIs, 5 runs, and a 941 OPS. Trey Turner is hitting 364 in the last 7 games with an 890 OPS. Bryce Harper, 350, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 7 walks, and a 1,400 OPS over the last 7 games. And Schwarber, 300, 4 RBIs, 931 OPS over his last 7 games. So they're coming in pretty hot offensively. So it's going to be a struggle for the Mets pitching staff, but I think they've been good all year, so I don't see why they wouldn't continue to pitch well. Now we're going to get into the Game 1 pitching matchup, and that will be Aaron Nola versus Tyler McGill. Now, McGill has been good in most of his starts this year. We all know about McGill. He goes great for 4 innings, and then he kind of struggles in the 5th, and it's an issue. And I think eventually, honestly, McGill, once they get some healthy pitchers back in their rotation, Minaya and Montas, I would love to see McGill in the bullpen because he does have really good stuff. And for an inning or two, you could see him being really dominant out of the bullpen. But right now, he's a starting pitcher. I know he wants to be a starter, and the Mets probably still view him as a starter, at least for now. But we have to see how he pitches against a good offense. We have to see how he does against a good lineup like the Phillies. He's going to have his work cut out for him, and we'll see how it goes. He's going up against Nola, who the Mets did hit well last year, but over his career, he's been pretty good against the Mets. I think he's 10-9. He has 28 starts against the Mets in his career. He's been with the Phillies for a long time, and I think he's 10-9 with like a mid-3s ERA. So he's been pretty good against the Mets in his career. I'm pretty sure, I didn't look up the exact stats, but I think I remember Alonso hits him really well. Alonso has a bunch of home runs against Nola, if I'm not mistaken. He's a guy who throws a big curveball, and he has not been good this year. He's 0-4 with a 6.65 ERA. Now he got a big contract before last season, I believe, and he hasn't really lived up to it quite yet, and he has not been great to start the year this year. I think his velocity is a little bit down. He's just not the same guy necessarily, but we'll see. It's the Phillies and Mets, so you never know what's going to happen, but I think both of these pitchers could have a rough time in this game, but really I think it's an opportunity for the Mets to hit Nola. In Game 2, we have Christopher Sanchez going up against Griffin Canning. Sanchez has been very good this year. He's 2-0 with a 2.96 ERA, 24 innings pitched. He has 31 strikeouts. His issue is he has given up some home runs. He's given up 4 home runs, but he doesn't walk a ton. He doesn't give up a ton of hits, but he's just been very good. He's getting a lot of strikeouts, and he's going to be a tough matchup for the Mets. I don't know that they faced him a lot. I don't really know Christopher Sanchez very well. I didn't look up any stats. I try to go off memory, and I don't remember a lot about Christopher Sanchez. Maybe you can let me know in the comments how they've done against him in the past. And he's going up against Griffin Canning. Canning so far this year, he's been pretty good, right? We probably better than we thought. When the Mets first signed Griffin Canning, and then through spring training he was given an opportunity to win a starting pitching spot, I wasn't very happy about that. I was not in favor of Griffin Canning because for the last few years he's been one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball. So it seems as though that Mets pitching lab has really done something for Canning. He's throwing a lot of sliders, but in his last start he started throwing more fastballs. I think he finally got to almost 50% fastballs in his pitch mix. So, and like I said before, now he said that's how he wants to pitch going forward this year, and that's how he thinks he's going to be the most effective. So Canning, he now has to prove, a lot like Tyler McGill, that he can do it against a good lineup. He's faced bad lineups and done very well. Can he do it against a good lineup? And it's going to be a big test for him. He's got to keep his walks down, got to keep under control, and just try to get deep into the game. Against the Phillies lineup, I don't know that he's going to go 3 times through the order. I just don't see him being able to do that against a team like this. So try to get through 5 innings, get through the order twice. Maybe you leak into the first couple of batters, but I think if you can get 5 innings out of him with 1 run or 2 runs, that's perfect. I would be perfectly fine with that, and it would be a great outing from Canning. But maybe he'll surprise us and do more. I don't know. I've been surprised by a lot of these pitchers on the Mets so far this year, and Canning is one of them. So could he be better than we all thought? Sure. Maybe the pitching lab does work with guys like this. We'll see. I'm not super enthused about that matchup, but we've seen stranger things happen, especially Mets-Phillies. Now, in the final game of this series, we have Zach Wheeler, the guy that Brody Van Wagenen didn't think was worth the money, going up against David Peterson, who struggled a little bit in his last start, and really his last couple starts haven't been so great. Zach Wheeler always pitches well against the Mets. They don't hit him. I mean, even back to last year in the playoffs, in Game 1 of that NLDS, where he shut them down for, I think, 7 innings, and then they took him out, and then the Mets got going against the bullpen. So Zach Wheeler always pitches well against the Mets. It still hurts me that he's not a Met because he's just been so much better since he left. Another loss for Brody Van Wagenen. And he's going up against Peterson, who really, let's face it, he's one of our more reliable pitchers at this point. Senga has been really good to start the year, but there's still question marks. He's coming off the injury. He's not great every time out. He's becoming more and more of a top-of-the-line starting pitcher. Clay Holmes, yes, he is going a little deeper into games now. He's gotten his walks under control a little bit, so you have a little more faith in him now. And then really after that, it's got to be Peterson, right? You don't necessarily trust Canning right now or McGill right now, so really he's your third guy. He's your number 3 solid starter, and he's got to perform like that. This is, I think, a good matchup for him. There's a lot of lefties in the Phillies order, especially their big guys with Schwarber and Harper. So I think this is a good matchup for Peterson, and I'd like to see him really come back to form and show that last year's version of Peterson that we saw. And this is a good opportunity for him to do it against a lineup that, yes, they've seen him a lot, but there's a lot of lefties in that lineup that he can take advantage of. So, listen, these are pitching matchups. Anything can happen, but I like our odds in that game, even though we're going up against Wheeler. Now, what I will say, it's a day game. Mets always hit bad in day games, and they're going up against a pitcher that they never hit. So who knows? It'll probably actually go the opposite because all those stars are aligning. They'll probably go out and score 10 runs against Wheeler. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen. Now we're going to talk about the keys to the series, and I think the first big key for the Mets is keep Schwarber and Harper from going deep. They got to keep them in the ballpark. Those two guys have the ability to completely take over a game, and keeping them in check and keeping them from hitting home runs is a huge part of beating that team and beating that offense. Because, like we said before, their keys should be holding Lindor, Soto, and Alonso in check, right? If you can stop those guys, the rest of their lineup isn't all that great. Yes, Trey Turner's a good player. Castellanos is a good player. They have good players on that team. But those are their big guys. Those are their guys that you can't let beat you. And it's of the utmost importance to keep those guys from hitting home runs and taking over a game. Completely changing. They're momentum changers, and the Mets can't let them change the momentum in the series. The next big thing, Soto during the last series started to heat up. We need to see that continue. He has not been an impact bat up until the last couple of games, and we need to see him be a consistent bat for the Mets. Yes, the walks are fine. We expect a lot of walks for Soto. He needs to be a guy who drives in runs. He had a nice opposite field double in the gap yesterday to do just that. He drove in 2 runs. He also had another RBI and a sacrifice fly. So he's coming around. And like I said, and like he said, he feels something. He knows he found something. So I'm not worried about it. I think he's about to go on a run, and that's a huge key for the Mets in this series. He's the type of guy who can carry an offense, and if he's able to do that against the Phillies, the Mets fans will really appreciate it. It's a team we like to beat. It's a rival. We want to beat them. Soto can really ingratiate himself to the Mets fans by pounding the Phillies this weekend, or this week. Another thing, we already kind of talked about it in going over the pitching matchups. McGill and Canning need to prove they can have success against better lineups than what they've been facing. Anyone can have a great game against the Marlins or the Twins or even the Astros as they've been struggling. But to have a really good game against a good offense like the Phillies, now you start to have more confidence in those guys. Now you start, it helps build their confidence, but also my confidence in watching the game, right? Right now, I'm kind of nervous about seeing what McGill can do against the Phillies because they just don't seem like a team he's going to do well against, or Canning. But they've proven me wrong so far this year, and I'm hoping that they do it again. It'll be a confidence boost for them and us, and maybe keep them in the rotation when they start getting guys back like Montas and Minaya. So, big key for them. We need a strong start out of both of those guys. Next, Acuna needs to continue to be a spark plug. At this point, I know Beatty started hitting well in the last series, but Acuna needs to play. And I've said I flip-flop back and forth on Beatty and Acuna and all that, but right now Acuna has to play. He's that hot hand. And he adds something to the offense that they don't have, which is speed and athleticism, and he provides a better glove than Beatty, although Beatty's been fine. Acuna does provide a much better glove and more speed and athleticism, stolen bases. He just changes the nature of the game because of his ability to put pressure on a defense, put pressure on a pitcher. And that's important. And I think it's something that the Mets lack, especially with Siri out, because Siri, let's face it, doesn't get on base very much. But when he does, he's that type of player. He's always a stolen base risk. He's always, he might even make a stupid play that works out because he's so fast. And the Mets don't have that without Acuna in the lineup right now. So Acuna needs to play. He needs to continue to be a spark plug, get on base for the big guys to drive in. And that's a huge key for them. And the last big key, honestly, is getting off to a good start against Nola. He's the type of guy who, if you let him get comfortable in a game, he can shut you down. So hit him right away. The Mets have had a problem with hitting pitchers right away. And if you can get to him in the first or second inning and maybe put up 2 or 3 runs, you can throw him completely out and throw him out of whack and really start to get to them and then get into their bullpen early and set the tone for the whole series. So getting to Nola early and getting to starting pitchers early, I think, is key for the Mets in this series and in this season. So let's get to Nola early. I'd like to see maybe, Lindor get on first and then Soto get a base hit and then Alonso come up and hit a home run. That would be perfect. That would just be, obviously we'd all wish for that to happen, right? But it would be really the perfect start. It would throw Nola out of whack and it would give them a good leg up in this series. All right, so obviously this is as big as an early season series can be. We're still in April, but all the games count. And if you want to get rid of that narrative of, the Mets haven't played anybody yet and their pitching staff is going to fail against good teams, this is where it has to start. You have to start to show that you can compete with the Phillies and that you're better than the Phillies. I think the Mets are better than the Phillies, to be honest with you. If you look at my preseason rankings, I had the Mets finishing behind the Braves in the NL East, and that looks like a bad prediction now, even though the Braves are playing a lot better. The Braves have been really bad. The Phillies have not been as good as maybe we thought. Early in the season, they weren't scoring a lot of runs, and they were pitching well, and now it's kind of flipped, and they're not pitching well, and they're scoring some runs. So it's still early in the season. You don't know what these teams are going to be, but winning this series will go a long way into proving that you can beat good teams and that you are a good team, and that when you're clicking and when the Mets are firing on all cylinders, they can beat anyone. And yes, the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants all look great. They're as good as those teams, at least maybe not the Dodgers, but they're as good as those other teams, or better. The Giants aren't better than the Mets. So this series really goes a long way in proving that you're in that class. Because a lot of people right now, it's a fair criticism to say, oh, they haven't played anyone yet. Wait till they play the Phillies or the Braves or the Giants or the Padres. But now you have the chance to go do it. You're bringing in a team to play that's a top team, and a team that a lot of people thought might be the second best team in baseball. So go out there and prove that you belong. And that's what I hope they do in this series. I hope the fans really show up this week. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be as packed as it was over the weekend, and the weather's not going to be as good as it was this weekend, so maybe we have a little dip in attendance, but I still expect a playoff atmosphere. They're playing the Phillies, so people will show up. And I hope that we have that same level of enthusiasm all through the year, and hopefully we will. If you're still here, you like this type of content, please subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Just hit subscribe. It doesn't affect you at all. Just subscribe. Give me a like and comment what you think. How do you think the Mets are going to fare in this series? How do you feel about their sweep of the Cardinals? And that's really it. So until next time, let's go Mets.